Alright, let's use Z-spheres to add shoelaces. So I've got the shoe as visible and everything else off. I'm going to append a Z-sphere. So you just click the append button and then you look for Z-sphere in the 3D mesh box. Select it, and then in our case we're going to have to pull out, because in terms of the entire model, if I just show everything, remember the head was really at the origin of 0, 0. So that's also what's happening here. So I'm going to turn everything back off, turn the shoe back on. Make sure the shoe is selected, go into move, and just drag that down. F to frame it, F to frame it. I'm going to move this right into the center, go into scale, click and drag upwards. Transparency is on, ghost is off. Set it to about the thickness of one of the laces and put it right dead set in the center. Like that. Okay, and then I'm going to go into draw. And we're going to turn symmetry on, but can we do local symmetry? No. So symmetry is not going to work in this case. Just got to keep that in mind. Okay, draw is on. If I click on the model or on the Z-sphere, I'm adding a Z-sphere. What we want to do is get one of them started, and then you can click on the subtool, and it'll just add it in. Okay, you can also press Shift to constrain it. So you start to drag it out, press Shift, start to drag it out, press Shift. Okay. And there we go. And let's just set that one down. Alright, so we've created one just by clicking and dragging on the model with transparency. Now I'm going to do this again. I'm going to come down, I'm going to drag out another one, press Shift, then click on the surface, pressing Shift to constrain it. Okay, got to think about my overlaps. They don't always have to be the same, but they tend to be. So just make sure that that happens as much as possible. Alright, and there we go. Let's add another little piece. He's not going to have tied shoelaces. I'm going to add another one off to the side here. So I'm just going to click on it, because if I was to just click on the surface, it would basically drag from this side over to that side. Not what I want. So I'm just going to click and draw, and then switch to move. Okay, now when you use move, your draw size is important. Something's happening, my cursor's sticking. So move, and then your draw size is important. So usually when you work with Z-spheres, you set your draw size really low. Okay, I could turn transparency off for the moment so we can see it. Okay, there you go. Alright, we got more work ahead of us. I just want you to see where we are right now. So if you press A on the keyboard, you see the poly mesh. Now what we need to do is just make this polymesh work better for us. So I'm pressing A to turn it off, and transparency's on. And what I'm going to do is, with the move brush and my draw size set really low, I'm going to grab these endpoints and really get a sense of overlap here. I'm just going to really work it. So make sure you're selecting, moving it up. Anything that's coming out of the rivet, like here, that needs to have another vertex really close to it. Okay, same here. This has to have another rivet coming, another little Z-sphere really close to it. Okay, so I did okay on that side. Let's do this side. Okay, and in. Okay, and so we've got these end points capped pretty well, I think. Let me just line this up a little bit differently. There you go. Okay. Press A. Turn off transparency. We're going to have some sculpting of the tongue to do, things like that, not a problem. But we're in okay shape. The only thing we need to do now, press A on the keyboard, and I need to get rid of some extra little Z-spheres here. So I'm going to go back to Draw, Alt-click, and Alt-click. Okay, I feel like those needed to be deleted. And then I'm going to Alt-click to create new ones. And then move and just position that, the little flare. Okay, transparency here. Okay, and let's really pull that in. Okay, press A on the keyboard. Okay, and we gotta really dig this one in. Okay, press A on the keyboard. Transparency off. Oops. I managed to get it all messed up. Okay, there we go. Alright, so that's looking okay and ready for us. So now the way that we're going to actually convert this into a mesh is that you'll go down to the bottom of the tool palette, Adaptive Skin, and say Make Adaptive Skin. Okay, now that doesn't actually convert this one, but what it does do is it does create a separate model up in here, which we're then going to have to come down to append and append it in, so that you'll have the Z-sphere and the skin. So append the skin, and then you can select the skin. Alright, and you'll have both versions. Now you can go into draw mode. We can divide this, G for solo mode, and you can start to work the different parts of it. So H polish to just start to hammer down some edges. Okay, and then feel free to use polygroups. Okay. All right, there you go. And these guys here. Not going to see them too much, but we'll see them a little bit. Okay, very quick, right? I'm not going to mess with it too much. But now I need to go into the shoe, and we need to sculpt the tongue down. So I'm going to use clay buildup without that alpha. So you can see in my clay buildup, I've just got the alpha set to no alpha. Okay, something like that. Oops. Select the shoe, press Alt. Okay. It accidentally selected one of the other subtools, which you can do by Alt clicking. So I just had to make sure it was selected again. Alright, solo mode. Let's clean this up a little bit with Trim Dynamic. And Trim Dynamic will give me that kind of clay, not the clay, but the more fabric quality of different parts interacting with each other. And then clay brush, and let's clean up the edge. Trim Dynamic. And yeah. And then inflate brush. Let's turn solo mode off and just kind of inflate around it. Okay, get that tongue out a little bit. And then Damien's standard brush. Let's start to separate out the tongue. We didn't sculpt any of the interior. Or /3. Okay, and then here. Clay buildup, but now with alpha 25. And I'm going to readjust this. It was off. So /3 here as well. Okay. Now I'm just going to hit the surface all over with this Trim Dynamic just to start to mess with it a little bit. In fact, why don't we try something like alpha 59 and just hit it. Alright. There we go. Alright. So now, if we want to mirror these over, just to complete this entire process, it's pretty simple because there's actually a plugin that's going to do all of it for us. Just go to Subtool Master and mirror. Merge it into one subtool and along the x-axis. Now it's telling me that the model is going to be almost 4 million polys, and I just tell it that that's fine. You may want to save before you do this in case anything happens, but it is very stable, so I wouldn't worry about it. I clicked on the surface right now, so it just gave me that little note saying, you know, this is pretty standard. Windows does that when you're doing something. So I just waited. And then I go into Z-spheres here, and then I'm going to do the same thing. But that was enough to get me nervous. So let's save it. Okay, and then I'm going to go into my laces, mirror, append X, good to go. And let's show everything. Hide the Z-spheres. Now I need to go into those shoes with symmetry on. So make sure transform symmetry is on. And we either have to move the shoes or we got to deal with the feet inside. I'm going to go with pull the shoes out a bit. And then of course I have to adjust that lace. So it's just a move brush, a couple of moments, but make sure symmetry's on. It wasn't on, so I got to redo that. And put it on there. Okay, great. All right, so we got a zombie. He has a pair of really nice tennis shoes, which we can zombify here in a moment. Some loose pants, a belt, some kind of buckle going on there, and you know, shirt, and one heck of a bad hair day.